First Thoughts with Julia McKINLEY.
Good morning and welcome from the Kingdom of Kerry. This morning's Gospel is Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 to 46. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value, went and sold all that he had and bought it. This morning's gospel reading presents us with some of the richest material in Matthew for reading some of the many parables of Jesus. Many of these parables, and certainly the imagery from these parables, will be familiar to us, partially because these are the most famous of Jesus's teachings that we find in the Synoptic Gospels and are amongst some of the most well-known of these teachings, but also because the parables tend to use familiar everyday images to communicate their message, like sowing seeds, knocking on a friend's door at night, lost sheep, lost coins, baking bread, buying a field, or a merchant selling jewels, all somewhat familiar images today, and certainly somewhat familiar images in first century Jewish life. But what is a parable? It might seem like an obvious question, but sometimes it is helpful to clarify what it is that we are reading. The word parable itself is Greek and means literally to throw alongside. The word para is alongside and bole is to throw. So ideas and images are cast alongside one another to communicate a particular message or teaching with a deeper meaning. Parables were a well-known Jewish teaching method at the time of Jesus. And indeed, we can find a number of parables in the Old Testament as well, and in other literature that comes from around the time of Jesus. Parables tend to be provocative in their message, in that they carry seemingly simple imagery and a thought encased within that imagery that is intended to make us think. They shatter stereotypes. Think of the parable of the Good Samaritan. And some parables are only a sentence or two long, like today's gospel reading. One scholar comments in relation to parables that it is good that the interpretations for these parables are not always there. They have not come down to us. And this is helpful in that different audiences might glean different meanings. And that is part of their beauty, that we need to dig a little bit deeper as we explore them to learn to hear them afresh. In our first parable this morning, we read about a man who discovered a treasure in a field, and it likens this discovery to what it is to engage with the kingdom of heaven. In Jewish thought at the time, heaven is sometimes used in place of God's name. So the kingdom of heaven is where God is. For the man discovering the treasure in a field, someone else had clearly buried that treasure and knew about it, but for some reason had not come back to claim it. Perhaps they were no longer alive. And the only way for the man to claim the treasure he had found was to sell all he had to buy that one field. The next parable holds a similar theme. Pearls in the Roman Empire had an immense value, and the merchant identifying this precious pearl sells all he had to invest in what is worthy. So what can we draw from these parables this morning? The value of the single pearl or one field might have appeared to other people as limited. They are just one thing. But to the people in the parable, they saw their worth and knew it was worth it to sell all they had That is quite a gesture, quite an investment to sell all you have to buy this one thing, a field or a pearl. So what does it mean to taste and see, to be all in, to choose something that is of God and is life-giving, to empty our hands of all the other things they might be filled with, and hold on to this good thing? For me, that brings up another question. What am I holding on to? Am I holding on to that which is superfluous or with not much meaning? Or am I holding on to that which is of life? May we all hold on to that which is of life, hold that which is of life in our hands, and allow God to show us or give us eyes to see the pearls of great price, or fields which are filled with hidden treasure, which might be all around us. Amen.